Hello all you webmasters out there. John over in Educational Technology here again, and today we're going to talk real quick about cropping photos for your hero slideshow, which is your homepage slideshow. So as you guys can see here, this is what we're all used to seeing. We've got this templated slideshow on our homepage. The issue many of us are running into with this is that it's a specific aspect ratio and size, which is not really conducive to most of the pictures that come in. So to combat that, we have to actually proactively think about how it could show up and how we could crop the photo to do that. And just to illustrate one thing for you guys, we usually set up a window like this and we look at it and we're like, oh yeah, it looks good. But you got to remember that on the web, you don't know what kind of device people are using, and you don't know what their screen size is set to. There's so many different variables here. So for example, let's say somebody happens to have their window really short. Okay, well, as I move the window in, this image changes. You see how it's small changes, but on top and bottom things get changed out. And if it's too close, we're going to start getting heads cut out. So little things like that are things we need to think about when you're cropping a photo. See right here, we're getting heads cut off. That might even be more so on other devices. So anyhow, here's some best practices for cropping your photos and just kind of keeping things in mind to not necessarily get it perfect, but at least get it a lot closer. So one of the easiest routes we've come up with is using Canva. So if you've ever used this site before, it's pretty great. It's free to use. They try to sell you a lot of extra stuff, but if you just kind of stay with the free tier, you're pretty good. So again, it's Canva, canva.com. You can sign up using your district Google account. I'm just going to click on log in with Google. To get into this. Okay, so once you're here, we're going to create a new design, and you can create this as a template long term if you want and just reuse the same one if you want. But create a template, go to custom dimensions, and for FinalSite it wants to see 1440 for your width. Your height, why don't we put in 750? And then this last one here, it is by default, but make sure it's on px for pixels, because that's what we're working with on a computer screen, and then create new design. So generally speaking, this rectangle is what we want to crop to in FinalSite. So I'm going to show you guys two examples. Again, this tutorial, we're just talking about cropping. I'll cover another tutorial about making other pictures work, especially if they don't fit into this model very well. So you would typically go to Uploads. You can upload an image here at the top where it says Upload an image. Upload whatever you have. So let's do two examples. The first one, this one's already horizontal. So if I drag that in, and you can resize this however you like, I'm going to go ahead and just drag it so that it's taking up the whole width of the screen. And so at this point, that is what it would kind of look like in FinalSite. A couple notes. You want to give yourself about 10% at the top as a margin and about 10% at the bottom as a margin. So if I did this and I had the student way up here, most likely we're going to get some heads cut off. Same thing at the bottom. If I want to make sure I see these shoes, for example, right now is actually the perfect margin. You want to give yourself a little bit of space. So in this case, I may not get the perfect crop, but I do want to leave myself space, especially for faces. So I'm going to do it about right there, maybe even a tiny bit lower. I know I might lose more on the bottom, but the faces are more important, so I'm going to leave it right there. At this point, that's pretty much all you have to do. You've filled the frame, you've put it at the same size dimensions that FinalSite would like to see, and you're done. So you can go to download. Now when you click on download, you do have a bunch of different options here. For what you're doing, just keep it at PNG. That's totally fine. Leave this part alone, leave everything else alone, and download. At that point, that picture is what you can now put into FinalSite and be good to go. Now, more often than not, and I'm just going to close this, more often than not, the problem isn't a picture like this. It's a problem that was shot vertically that we want to use. So in this example, we have a vertical photo that we'd like to use on FinalSite. Now, I'll just tell you up front, unless you start getting creative, which we'll cover in the next tutorial, with other stuff to put on here, you need to stretch this out to the full length of the screen, meaning you're going to lose a lot of information. Now in this case, it's actually a pretty good example because I've got a lot of dead space. There's a lot of stuff at the bottom here I don't need, and I don't need all this at the top, even though, to an extent it would be nice. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to drag it all the way to fill the frame, at least width-wise. And at this point, it's just a matter of saying what's it going to look best at when I move this photo around. So right now, that's not good. I'm going to get a lot of cut off heads. Their feet are really not important in this photo. The ribbon cutting and maybe something at the top, including their faces, is what's important. So I'm just going to move this photo about maybe here, because I'm okay cutting off the bottom. It's okay to lose some of this at the bottom, and I've got some margin at the top that is what I could lose. So if you're using a vertical photo, this would be an ideal situation where you can make it full width and just get the section you want. Now, if that's not possible, say it's a headshot, and if I make it big, I'm cutting off the top of their head and their chin. We will cover that in the next tutorial. But for now, this was just a really super easy way to get some cropped photos to the right aspect ratio and size for FinalSite. So I hope that helps everyone, and I will see you next time.